Kayla stepped into the inspection chamber with a quiet but steady resolve. The air was cold, unnaturally so, and carried the faint scent of ionized metal. The walls shimmered faintly, like liquid silver frozen in motion, and panels of light pulsed with a rhythm that made her pulse quicken. She adjusted the strap of her simple belt and let her fingers brush the hilt of the knife she carried. It was nothing fancy, a human-made blade, worn, scratched, and aged, but it had survived her family for generations. To the aliens around her, it would seem laughably primitive. The beings that filled the chamber were unlike anything she had ever seen. They were tall, taller than any human, their bodies covered in scales that reflected the pulsing lights. Their limbs bent in ways that made her stomach tighten, and their faces, if faces they could be called, were smooth and featureless, save for eyes that glimmered like liquid gems. These were the Arvath, an alien civilization whose history, Kayla had learned, stretched back thousands of their cycles, far older than humanity's recorded history. They were known across several systems for their intelligence, technological mastery, and disdain for what they considered primitive species. One of the Arvath stepped forward. Its form rippled, as though it were water trying to hold a solid shape. A slender crystalline arm extended toward her, and she felt the subtle pressure of their presence, probing her, judging her. Kayla met the alien's gaze, letting her own eyes hold steady. She didn't need words. Her posture and her calm told them she was aware, prepared, and unafraid. The alien reached for her knife. Kayla instinctively held it closer to her side, the worn metal familiar and comforting in her hand. The blade had been in her family for centuries, passed down from hand to hand, from ancestor to ancestor. Each had used it to survive, against beasts, against other humans, against whatever threat the galaxy had thrown at them. This knife had history. This knife had survived more than any human-made technology, and in its steel, Kayla felt the heartbeat of generations. The alien's voice, or the closest thing to a voice it could produce, clicked in a staccato rhythm. "Primitive weapon," it said, the words halting, unfamiliar. "From a time before understanding, why carry such inefficiency?" Kayla's lips pressed into a thin line. She did not reply. She only let her grip on the knife tighten slightly. Her eyes scanned the room. The Arvath were organized, disciplined, and ruthless in their inspection protocols. They had studied hundreds of species and declared many extinct. Humans had been lucky enough to be overlooked for a long time, but now, here in this room, she was humanity's representative. And she would not falter. One of the aliens stepped back, its bioluminescent scales pulsing in bright streaks. Another circled, watching her, analyzing the way her hand moved. Kayla was aware of every movement, every sound, every shadow cast across the metallic floor. The chamber was a trap, and the Arvath knew it. That was why she had trained her entire life for moments like this. Years of survival drills, combat training, and learning to read opponents, all of it had led to this precise point. The alien reached for the knife again. Kayla allowed her hand to rest on the hilt, feeling the grooves worn into the handle by generations of use. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told her. "This knife has lived through fires, through wars, through the freezing ice of space colonies that never lasted a season," her grandmother had said. "It remembers. It will protect you if you respect it." Kayla had not fully understood what her grandmother meant back then, but now she did. She understood that the knife was more than metal. It was history. It was survival. As the aliens scanned her, their devices glowing faintly around the blade, Kayla noticed something strange. The knife's edge, dull and chipped to an untrained eye, began to shimmer faintly. The light was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A pulse, as if the knife itself was alive, reacting to the alien technology probing it. The Arvath paused, and for a moment she thought they might not understand what they were seeing. The alien leader, taller and more radiant than the others, leaned closer. Its movements were fluid, almost liquid. Its voice, when it spoke, carried a mixture of confusion and awe. "This should not exist. Your species, you carry an artifact older than our records. How?" Kayla's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. She did not need to answer. She only let the knife catch the light, revealing its age, its scars, its story. She could feel the energy emanating from it, subtle, almost imperceptible, but powerful in ways the Arvath could not measure. The aliens reached for her, slowly testing boundaries. Kayla's instincts took over. She moved the knife with a fluidity born of years of training. It was not a demonstration of violence, but of skill, precision, and readiness. The blade seemed to extend her will, carving invisible lines through the air, a warning that humans could not be underestimated. The leader of the Arvath recoiled slightly, a ripple of light flashing across its form. "Your species, you defy expectation," it stammered. The other Arvath paused as well, uncertainty creeping into their precise, methodical movements. Humans had always been considered primitive, simple, almost fragile. Their tools crude, their instincts unrefined. And yet here was Kayla alone, demonstrating a level of intuition and adaptability that no data set could predict. Time seemed to stretch. Kayla's mind moved faster than the blinking lights, faster than the alien sensors could react. Every shadow, every reflection, every movement was calculated. She had trained for survival in the harshest conditions humans had faced, from frozen colonies to abandoned mining stations where life was scarce. This was just another environment, just another test. Only this time the stakes were higher, the weight of her entire species pressing on her shoulders. The alien leader extended its crystalline arm again, this time slower, more deliberate. Kayla didn't flinch. She allowed the knife to rest lightly in her hand, ready to respond but not provoke. And then, subtly, she shifted her weight, a small, almost imperceptible motion, and the blade caught a reflection from the light panel above. The shimmer pulsed, brightening for just a fraction of a second. The Arvath froze. That shimmer, it wasn't just light. It was energy, raw and old. The knife had survived centuries, yes, but it had also absorbed something from those centuries, a memory of survival, of battles fought, of lives defended. The Arvath devices could measure matter and energy, but they could not measure history. They could not measure instinct. Kayla's heart beat steadily. She felt her grandmother's voice in her mind again. Respect it, trust it. It will guide you when the world demands more than strength alone. She had trusted the knife through countless scrapes, countless moments when instinct was the only ally she had. And now, in the cold, sterile chamber of a civilization that considered itself superior, she trusted it again. The alien leader took a step back, its light flickering nervously. The other Arvath hesitated, uncertain how to respond. They had catalogued thousands of species, and none had moved like this. None had shown the combination of intelligence, instinct, and raw survival skill that Kayla now displayed with simple motions of her hand and knife. For the first time, Kayla realized that fear, real, sharp fear, was present in the room, but it was not her fear. It belonged to the aliens. They had underestimated her, underestimated humanity, and the moment had shifted. The knife, old and simple, had reminded them that survival was not about tools alone, nor about technology. Survival was about adaptability, courage, and the ability to wield history as a weapon. The chamber seemed to hum louder, as if recognizing the tension, the shift in balance. Kayla's eyes scanned the room again, reading the alien responses like a book. She noted the subtle hesitation in their movements, the flicker of light that betrayed their surprise. Every creature, no matter how advanced, had instincts. Every civilization had its blind spots. And Kayla, armed with nothing but a simple blade and unbroken human will, had found theirs. She remembered the stories from Earth, of humanity surviving floods, plagues, wars, and famine. Of humans turning nothing into something, of rising when others had counted them out. That same spirit flowed through her veins now, channeled through the simple knife at her side. This was not a battle yet, but a declaration. Humans were not to be underestimated. The alien leader extended a thin arm again, slower this time, studying her, its light flickering in a pattern that might have been thought or emotion. Kayla held the knife at her side, letting it catch the ambient glow. The knife gleamed faintly, and for a fraction of a second it seemed almost alive. The Arvath sensed it too, though they could not understand why. "You survive against odds," the leader whispered almost to itself. It wasn't a question nor a statement. It was a recognition. Kayla's jaw tightened slightly. Recognition alone would not save her. She had to show them, prove that humans were more than primitive hunters or simple beings with outdated tools. She had to demonstrate that survival was encoded in her species, blood. As the inspection continued, Kayla's mind raced. She mapped exits, calculated trajectories, and prepared for contingencies. The knife in her hand was an anchor. She drew on its history, on the generations that had wielded it, survived with it, lived by it. She was not alone in that chamber. She carried every human who had ever faced impossible odds. And for the first time, she felt the weight of that legacy as clearly as the grip of the knife. The Arvath stepped closer, curiosity and caution now entwined. Kayla's instincts flared. She shifted her stance subtly, ready to respond if necessary, but waiting. Patience was as much a weapon as the knife. And the knife, older than the alien's civilization itself, waited too, silent, unyielding, eternal. Kayla knew the inspection was only beginning. The Arvath would test her, probe for weaknesses, attempt to break her confidence. But they had already underestimated her, and that mistake would cost them. She smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. Humans had survived worse. They had endured what others had deemed impossible. And Kayla, armed with a simple, ancient knife, would make them understand the truth. Survival, instinct, and the human spirit were forces no technology could conquer. Kayla felt the weight of the alien inspection settle more heavily around her as the Arvath continued to study the knife. Their crystalline devices hovered over the blade, scanning its edge, measuring its density, energy absorption, and molecular composition. Yet, no matter how advanced their technology, the knife refused to conform to their understanding. Its steel shimmered faintly, reacting to their sensors in pulses that seemed almost deliberate. The alien leader leaned closer, its glowing body flickering in confusion. "It should not respond like this," it said, its voice a cascade of clicks and tones that somehow conveyed astonishment. "No metal of this age should retain energy. No artifact from a primitive species should resist our measurements." Kayla allowed herself a quiet, controlled smile. She did not need to speak. The knife's presence spoke louder than words. She knew what it was, she could feel it deep in her bones. This blade had been forged centuries before her people even knew the stars existed, and it had survived every challenge, every war, every disaster. It was alive in a sense that defied science. Not conscious in a mindless way, but carrying memory. Memory of survival, memory of struggle, memory of instinct honed over generations. The Arvath continued to probe, pressing the knife with instruments that could reshape alloys on a molecular level. Kayla felt the vibrations through her grip. The blade pulsed faintly in response, and she realized with a thrill that it was guiding her subtly. Not controlling her movements, not forcing her hand, but whispering through sensations she alone could feel. She could anticipate their moves. She could sense the hesitation in their logic circuits. A smaller Arvath floated closer, its multiple limbs moving in careful, elegant sweeps as it examined the knife from every angle. Its clicks and pulses were rapid, almost frantic, as if the more it scanned, the less it understood. "It carries history," it said, as though tasting the word for the first time. "It remembers." Kayla's eyes narrowed. That was exactly right. The knife remembered the struggles of her ancestors. It remembered the countless battles fought with nothing but wits and courage. And now, in this sterile, alien chamber, it was reminding her that she was a product of that history. A human capable of surviving, adapting, and striking with precision no machine could predict. Suddenly, the Arvath leader extended its crystalline arm toward her again, faster this time. Kayla's grip tightened. Her stance shifted slightly, and the knife moved with her almost instinctively. In a single, fluid motion, she deflected the alien's reach, letting the blade cut a precise line through the energy field surrounding the instrument. Sparks of alien energy flared around the knife's edge. The Arvath froze. "No species, no primitive species should," the leader stammered, its light flickering nervously. Kayla's mind was already racing. She knew this was her opportunity. The aliens had expected compliance, obedience, fear. Instead, they were met with calm, precision, and the subtle but undeniable proof that humans could fight and survive using nothing more than instinct and history. Kayla advanced slightly, her movements measured, her eyes scanning for potential threats. The Arvath tried to recalibrate, but every motion they made was anticipated, subtly countered by her instinct honed over years of training. The knife had taught her more than any drill, more than any simulator. It had taught her to read patterns, to sense intent, to survive against odds that seemed impossible. One of the Arvath attempted a more aggressive maneuver, extending a long, whip-like appendage toward her. Kayla shifted her weight, the knife slicing through the air with precision. The energy whip struck the floor instead, sparking and clattering uselessly. The alien recoiled, unprepared for a human to move with such calculated speed and awareness. The chamber, which had been cold and sterile moments before, now felt charged, alive with tension. Every Arvath in the room seemed to sense the shift. The humans, they realized, were not what they had thought. Kayla was not just a survivor. She was a predator in her own right, guided by instinct, history, and the raw ingenuity of her species. Kayla took a deep breath, centering herself. She could feel the knife thrumming faintly in her hand, responding to the stress, guiding her movements, connecting her to every ancestor who had wielded it. She remembered the tales of early human explorers who had crossed frozen wastelands with nothing but primitive tools, who had survived floods, plagues, and wars. All of that experience, all of that survival, was in her veins now. The knife was not just a weapon, it was a teacher, a guide, a companion. The alien leader floated closer, cautiously now, its glowing scales pulsing with a pattern that Kayla interpreted as calculation and fear. "You do not act like other species," it said. "You are unpredictable, your instincts dangerous." Kayla's lips curved into a faint smile. That was the truth. Humans were unpredictable because humans survived in ways no algorithm could predict. Humans adapted. Humans endured. And humans, even armed with the simplest tools, could outmaneuver the most advanced technology if they relied on skill, creativity, and will. The Arvath deployed more instruments, scanning devices that hummed and glowed, forming a web around her. Kayla moved carefully, every step precise, every motion calculated. She let the knife guide her subtly, feeling the vibrations along the hilt, sensing the energy in the chamber, anticipating each movement the aliens made. It was as if she and the blade were one entity, responding together to every threat. A sudden surge of energy from one of the Arvath instruments nearly caught her off guard, but she twisted instinctively, slicing the air with the knife. The blade's edge glowed faintly as it made contact with the alien energy, deflecting it harmlessly to the floor. The Arvath recoiled, clearly shocked. They had expected resistance, perhaps, but not the level of skill and instinct she displayed. One of the smaller Arvath hovered close, its multiple limbs moving in nervous patterns. "It adapts, faster than our models predict, its reflexes guided by memory," it clicked, unsure of the correct terminology. Kayla's eyes met its gaze. That was the truth. Humans were not just machines executing commands. Humans learned, adapted, survived, and remembered. Every failure, every victory, every scrap of history was a weapon in their hands. The alien leader's light pulsed rapidly, a sign of agitation. It had underestimated her, underestimated humans, and the realization was making it erratic. "Contain it," it commanded, and suddenly multiple energy nets shot toward her. Kayla reacted instantly, twisting, ducking, and using the knife to slice through the web of energy before it could entangle her. Sparks flew, illuminating the chamber in brief flashes. The Arvath were forced to pause. No species had ever countered their containment methods with such precision, especially not with such a simple weapon. The knife, old and worn, had become a symbol of the human spirit, a spirit that refused to be constrained by technology or expectation. Kayla pressed her advantage, moving closer to the alien leader, each step deliberate, each motion guided by instinct and history. The Arvath tried to respond, but every strategy they attempted seemed predictable to her. She was not fast because of reflex alone. She was fast because she understood survival in ways they never could. Every instinct honed by millennia of human endurance, every lesson learned through scarcity, danger, and conflict, flowed through her now. The leader extended a long, crystalline arm in an attempt to strike, but Kayla sidestepped with fluid grace, slicing the air near it, demonstrating that her human unpredictability could not be countered by raw technology alone. The pulse of energy that followed the knife's edge seemed to resonate with the Arvath, almost as if they could sense that the blade carried more than steel. It carried history, experience, and instinct. Kayla's mind raced. She understood that the knife was not just a tool. It was a connection to every human who had survived before her. She could feel them in the rhythm of her movements, in the pulse of her heart, in the subtle guidance of the blade. This was more than a fight. It was a demonstration of humanity itself. The alien leader floated back, visibly unsettled. Its lights flickered erratically, a sign of confusion or fear. Kayla could not tell which. The other Arvath hesitated, unsure how to proceed. No protocol could account for the unpredictability of human instinct, for the ability of one person to manipulate history, intuition, and survival into a weapon against a far superior technology. Kayla's chest rose and fell steadily. She felt a surge of pride, tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The Arvath had underestimated humans once. They would not make that mistake twice. The knife in her hand pulsed faintly, guiding her, connecting her to every ancestor, every battle, every survival story that had led to this moment. The chamber's hum shifted, almost imperceptibly. Kayla knew the aliens were recalculating, reassessing, trying to understand how a single human could defy centuries of expectation and technological superiority. She took a deep breath, centering herself, letting the blade guide her movements. The fight was far from over, but she had already proven one undeniable truth. Humans were not primitive. Humans survived. Humans endured. And humans, armed with history, instinct, and courage, were unpredictable beyond measure. For the first time, the Arvath hesitated. They had encountered weapons, technology, strategies, but never a human spirit so unyielding, so raw, and so dangerous in its simplicity. Kayla smiled faintly, knowing that the knife was more than a blade. It was a testament to her species. She would continue to fight, not out of hatred or anger, but out of the simple truth of survival. And the Arvath, for all their brilliance, were about to learn that human survival was not to be underestimated. Kayla's heartbeat steadied as she assessed the chamber. The Arvath had paused, recalculating, but their hesitation was temporary. She knew they would attempt something more aggressive soon. Their technology was far superior to hers, energy fields, containment nets, scanning arrays, but she had something no machine could replicate: instinct. Humans survived because they adapted, and Kayla intended to prove that again. The Arvath leader's body pulsed with light, brighter now, almost frantic. It gestured sharply, and dozens of small, hovering drones emerged from the walls. They were sleek, metallic, each equipped with arms, energy projectors, and sensors that could scan and restrain faster than human reflexes should allow. The room suddenly felt smaller, crowded with moving machines, each calculating how to neutralize her. Kayla's fingers tightened on the knife. She didn't hesitate. The blade had been in her family for centuries, passed down through countless generations. Each ancestor who had wielded it had survived impossible odds. Now it was her turn. She let instinct guide her, the subtle hum of the blade connecting her to the rhythm of the chamber, the drones, the Arvath themselves. The first drone shot forward, its energy clasp extended to grab her. Kayla sidestepped, sliding low to the floor, and struck the drone with the edge of her knife. Sparks flew as the metal met energy, and the drone faltered, its systems momentarily overloaded. Kayla twisted and struck again, the blade cutting cleanly through a secondary drone sensor array. The Arvath gasped, or at least she thought they did, before attempting to coordinate another strike. She moved with a grace born of necessity, anticipating the drone's trajectory as if the knife itself was reading the situation. Every movement of her hand, every adjustment of her body was calculated in microseconds. The drones, precise as they were, could not predict human unpredictability. Kayla ducked, rolled, struck, and deflected, her knife slicing arcs of energy like a conductor guiding a symphony. The Arvath leader's voice echoed sharply, though broken. "Contain it! Immobilize it!" Primitive species, impossible. Its frustration pulsed through the chamber, and Kayla felt it as clearly as she felt the energy in the knife. She understood their calculations now. They expected her to react in predictable patterns, but humans were the opposite of predictable. Kayla's mind raced. She studied each drone's movement, each light pattern, each shift in their energy projections. Every instinct her ancestors had honed in hunting, fighting, surviving guided her now. She moved faster than thought, faster than the drone's sensors could track, and for each step she took, one or two drones faltered. Her knife seemed to hum faintly, reacting to the energy around it, connecting her to the environment, almost as if it were alive. A sudden barrage of energy streams came from above, forming a semicircle around her. Kayla pivoted, the knife slicing through one beam, then another, sparks flying, the air sizzling with released energy. The Arvath watched, stunned, as the so-called primitive human maneuvered effortlessly through what they believed would be certain restraint. She remembered her grandmother's stories of survival, how humans had endured natural disasters that should have destroyed them, how they had adapted to frozen wastelands, deserts, and starvation. "Instinct guides the hand when logic fails," her grandmother had said. Kayla now understood that in a way the words had never meant before. Logic, the Arvath's greatest strength, was useless when confronted with raw survival instinct executed perfectly. Kayla's blade struck again, a single fluid motion cutting through the energy net of a hovering drone, then deflecting a secondary attack aimed at her legs. Sparks and light flared around her, painting the chamber in sharp shadows. She felt alive, aware in every fiber of her being, more connected to her ancestors than ever before. This was not just a fight, it was a testament to humanity itself. The Arvath leader tried to intervene directly, extending its long, crystalline arm toward her. Kayla anticipated the movement instinctively, pivoting and slicing through the nearest drone first to create a distraction. Then, with a swift leap, she brought the knife down in a precise arc. The blade struck the alien's arm at a sensitive joint, producing a sharp sound that echoed across the chamber. The alien recoiled, its light flickering violently, unaccustomed to pain, or perhaps unfamiliar with being countered at all. Kayla pressed forward. Every human instinct, honed by centuries of survival, guided her. She used the environment to her advantage. Metallic walls reflected energy beams, shadows masked her movements, and the pulsing lights revealed the positions of drones and the Arvath themselves. She moved like water, flowing around obstacles, using speed, perception, and sheer unpredictability. Another wave of drones descended, faster this time, their sensors more precise, their coordination tighter. Kayla did not hesitate. She ducked under one, spun past another, and in a single motion drove the tip of her blade through the control console of a hovering drone. Sparks shot across the chamber as the device collapsed, sending a cascade of energy pulses that briefly disabled nearby units. She felt the knife vibrate faintly, almost approvingly, as if acknowledging the strike. The Arvath were shaken. They had calculated every possible outcome, every predicted reaction, yet here she was, one human, armed with a simple blade, turning their most advanced technology against them with ease. Their confidence wavered. They had assumed humans were weak, predictable, primitive, but Kayla was proof that survival was coded into her species, very being. Kayla's movements were precise, economical. She did not waste energy or motion. Every strike, every parry, every step was intentional. The Arvath's attacks became more frantic, less coordinated as they struggled to predict her next move. She felt the pulse of the chamber, the energy of the drones, the reactions of the aliens, all of it flowing through her awareness. The knife guided her, a conduit of human resilience and instinct. At one point, she leapt onto a platform, narrowly avoiding an energy net that would have immobilized her. She swung the blade, cutting through a series of wires that controlled several drones simultaneously. They crashed to the floor, sparks flaring, and Kayla landed lightly, almost silently, despite the chaos around her. Her heart pounded, but her breathing remained steady. Survival demanded focus, not panic, and Kayla was a master of focus. The Arvath leader's frustration was evident. It pulsed violently, its light flickering erratically. It had underestimated her. "Primitive cannot resist calculations," it stammered. Kayla knew the truth. Humans were not just flesh and bone, not just tools and weapons. Humans survived through intelligence, instinct, and the ability to adapt instantly to any situation. No algorithm could fully anticipate that. Kayla advanced on the leader now. She did not strike recklessly, she struck with purpose. She let the knife hum faintly in her hand, using its subtle energy to sense weak points in the Arvath's defensive positions. She could anticipate their movements, react to their attacks, and exploit any hesitation. The Arvath leader extended multiple arms, attempting to overwhelm her, but Kayla dodged, parried, and countered with a skill that left the aliens momentarily stunned. One of the smaller Arvath whispered rapidly, almost as if talking to itself. "It adapts faster than anticipated, primitive species beyond prediction." Kayla smiled faintly. That was exactly right. Humans were unpredictable. Humans endured. Humans survived. And sometimes they thrived in situations that no one else would expect. The chamber was in chaos. Sparks flew, light reflected wildly, and drones crashed against walls and floors. Kayla moved through the storm of energy and technology like a shadow, the knife an extension of her will. Every movement carried the weight of history, the survival of her ancestors, the ingenuity of her species, the unbroken chain of humans who had thrived where others failed. For the first time, the Arvath hesitated collectively. Their attacks slowed, their movements less precise. They were forced to acknowledge the unthinkable. A single human, armed with nothing but instinct and an ancient knife, had bested their most advanced defensive technologies. It was a humbling, terrifying realization. Kayla felt the pulse of the knife once more, subtle but insistent. She understood what it was telling her. The fight was not over, but the momentum was hers. She moved strategically, disabling drones, avoiding energy nets, and keeping the Arvath off balance. The chamber's rhythm was hers now, guided by the knife, guided by instinct, guided by centuries of human survival encoded into her very being. The Arvath leader finally stopped, hovering in place, its light flickering nervously. Its voice, now almost reverent, carried a tone of disbelief. "Your species does not conform to predictions impossible." Kayla's chest rose and fell steadily. She had proven something fundamental. Humans were more than primitive. Humans endured, humans adapted, humans survived. And in that moment the knife, worn, chipped, ancient, glimmered faintly in her hand. It had guided her, protected her, amplified her instincts, and now it bore witness to the truth the Arvath were only beginning to comprehend. Survival was not about superior technology. It was about intelligence, courage, instinct, and the unyielding human spirit. Kayla's eyes met the leader's glowing gaze. She did not speak, yet her presence conveyed a simple, undeniable truth: underestimate humanity at your peril. The Arvath, brilliant and ancient, were learning the hard way that humans were not merely primitive. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and unstoppable when survival demanded it. The chamber fell into a tense silence. The drones lay scattered, some sparking, some entirely disabled. The Arvath leader pulsed erratically, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and begrudging respect. Kayla stood in the middle of the chamber, her knife steady, her breathing calm. She had survived the first wave of aggression, and in doing so, she had shown humanity's truth. Even the simplest weapon in the hands of a human could become a force that no technology could fully anticipate. Kayla felt a surge of quiet pride, tempered by awareness. This was only the beginning. The Arvath would regroup. They would try again. But one fact was undeniable: she had made them see humans differently. And that shift, small though it was, would echo far beyond this chamber. The human spirit, ancient, resilient, and unbroken, had begun to leave its mark on the galaxy. Kayla stood in the center of the chamber, the scattered drones smoldering at her feet. The Arvath leader hovered a few meters away, its light pulsing erratically, a chaotic rhythm that mirrored its thoughts. Kayla's knife glimmered faintly in her hand, chipped and worn but unyielding, a symbol of centuries of human survival and ingenuity. She could feel the pulse of energy in the blade, a subtle vibration that seemed almost like a heartbeat, reminding her of her ancestors, their struggles, and the unbroken chain of humanity that had led to this moment. The leader extended multiple crystalline arms, each shimmering with energy that could easily slice through human flesh or metal. "Primitive, cannot, challenge, calculation, impossible," it stammered, its voice fracturing into jagged pulses. The other Arvath observed quietly, their movements hesitant, unsure how to respond. Kayla had become a puzzle no algorithm could solve. She was survival itself, instinct perfected, a human standing against the arrogance of an ancient civilization. Kayla's mind worked rapidly. The first waves had been tests, attempts to overwhelm her with superior technology. But she had survived, adapted, and turned their weapons against them. Now it was time to finish the confrontation, not with anger, but with precision, skill, and the raw, unyielding power of human instinct. She took a deep breath, centering herself, letting the rhythm of the chamber, the pulse of the blade, and the flow of the Arvath movements guide her. The first strike came from the leader itself, a swift thrust of a crystalline limb aimed directly at her. Kayla pivoted, the knife moving as an extension of her arm. She deflected the strike, letting the momentum carry her past the leader and into a better position. Sparks flew as energy struck the metallic floor, illuminating the chamber in flashes of bright white light. Kayla landed softly, her eyes scanning, anticipating the next move. The Arvath launched another wave, this time coordinating their drones in a tighter formation. They moved like a single organism, their sensors tracking her with lethal precision. Kayla didn't panic. She let the knife guide her subtly, feeling the vibrations of energy in the room, sensing the patterns in their attacks. Humans had survived floods, famine, ice storms, and endless wars. This was only another challenge. a challenge to adapt, to endure, to conquer. She struck first, slicing the nearest drone in half. Sparks erupted, blinding the sensors of the others momentarily. Kayla pivoted, slashing through a second drone before it could recalibrate. Every movement was deliberate, economical, and precise. The Arvath were forced to pause, recalculating once more. They had underestimated human unpredictability, the power of instinct refined over centuries, and now they were paying the price. Kayla advanced on the leader, careful but confident. Its arms struck, energy slicing the air, but she anticipated every move. Her knife seemed to hum, almost alive, reacting to the energy pulses, vibrating in response to the chamber, the drones, the alien movements. She moved faster than the leader could predict, faster than the drones could adjust. She was not merely defending. She was demonstrating the culmination of human survival. Intelligence, instinct, courage, and adaptability all working in perfect harmony. One of the drones lunged at her from above, its sensors trained on her movements. Kayla twisted midair, the knife striking the energy clasp and redirecting it harmlessly into the wall. Sparks scattered, illuminating the chamber's edges. Another drone fell as she used the momentum to disable its control array with a precise strike of the blade. The Arvath leader's light flickered violently, its movements jerky and uncertain. They had miscalculated her abilities. They had underestimated the human spirit. Kayla took advantage of the momentary hesitation. She leapt forward, blade aimed at a weak point she had observed in the leader's structure. Her movements were fluid, instinctive, precise. The knife struck with the force of centuries of human survival, slicing through a joint in the crystalline limb. A sharp sound echoed through the chamber, and the leader recoiled, momentarily stunned. Its light pulsed erratically, the rhythm broken for the first time. The other Arvath paused, watching their eyes, or whatever they used to see, wide with disbelief. This human, this single human, was not only surviving but actively dominating their superior technology. Kayla's movements were a perfect blend of precision and instinct, each step, each strike calculated yet unpredictable. It was the human way, adaptive, resourceful, and relentless. She pressed the advantage. With a series of fluid motions, Kayla disabled 2 more drones, using the knife not only to strike, but to manipulate the energy fields surrounding them. The knife, worn and simple, gleamed faintly, humming in response to the alien technology. It had survived centuries, and now it was guiding her hand, helping her adapt, helping her outmaneuver enemies who relied solely on calculations. The Arvath leader tried to rally its drones, extending its arms in complex patterns to regain control. Kayla anticipated, dodged, and countered, using the energy pulses of the chamber to her advantage. Each strike of the knife disrupted sensors, damaged drone motors, and forced the Arvath into defensive maneuvers. She was the predator now, and the Arvath were reacting to her, uncertain, afraid, and outmatched in ways they had never imagined. Kayla's breathing remained steady. She had learned long ago that panic was the enemy of survival. Humans endured by staying calm, observing, adapting, and acting decisively. Her ancestors had survived storms, starvation, and predators with nothing but instinct and simple tools. The knife in her hand was no longer just a weapon. It was the embodiment of that legacy. She moved as if guided by generations, each movement an echo of survival passed down through centuries. The Arvath leader extended multiple limbs in an attempt to overwhelm her simultaneously. Kayla reacted instinctively, spinning, dodging, striking, and slicing. Sparks flew as energy struck the knife and ricocheted into the chamber walls. One of the leader's joints was severed with a precise strike, and it stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. The remaining drones faltered, their coordination broken by the unexpected fluidity of her movements. Kayla's eyes scanned for another opportunity. The leader's core was exposed slightly, a weak point she had identified during the battle. She shifted her stance, letting the knife hum faintly in her hand, guiding her motions with a subtle awareness that seemed almost alive. Then, with a leap, she brought the blade down in a perfect arc, slicing through a crucial support limb. The leader's light pulsed violently, then dimmed, jerking in ways that revealed its defeat. The remaining drones, now leaderless and disoriented, began to falter. Kayla moved with controlled speed, disabling them one by one. Sparks, light, and energy flares filled the chamber, but she remained calm, precise, unstoppable. Every strike, every motion, every decision was the result of instinct, history, and human ingenuity. She was the culmination of a species that had survived countless catastrophes, and the Arvath were witnessing it firsthand. When the dust settled, Kayla stood alone in the chamber. The drones were disabled, the leader dimmed, and the Arvath were silent, their glowing forms flickering nervously. She held the knife firmly in her hand, the simple blade now a symbol of human endurance, adaptability, and spirit. She had survived where none expected her to, and in doing so, she had forced an ancient civilization to reconsider the meaning of primitive. The leader, recovering slightly, floated toward her slowly. Its lights pulsed in a pattern that seemed almost reverent. "Your species is not as primitive as we believed," it said, its voice trembling with an emotion Kayla could not identify. "Your survival instinct exceeds prediction." Kayla's lips curved into a faint smile. She did not need to say anything. The truth was visible in her stance, in the knife, in the calm precision with which she surveyed the chamber. Humans survived. Humans adapted. Humans endured. And in that moment the Arvath understood that their assumptions about humanity had been dangerously wrong. The leader pulsed softly, almost contemplatively. "Your tool carries history, knowledge, strength. It is remarkable." Kayla nodded slightly. That was all it needed to understand. The knife had survived centuries, had guided her hand, and had proven to the galaxy that human ingenuity and instinct were forces to be reckoned with. Kayla stepped back, lowering the knife slightly but keeping it ready. She had not attacked recklessly. She had defended, adapted, and demonstrated the power of her species. The Arvath, she realized, were beginning to respect her, even if they could not fully comprehend her abilities. This was the true strength of humans, not brute force or superior technology, but adaptability, courage, and an unbroken spirit. The chamber was quiet now, save for the hum of the remaining machinery. Kayla took a deep breath, feeling the knife's subtle vibration, a reminder of the lineage it carried, the survival it symbolized, and the legacy she now embodied. She was not just a human in a chamber of aliens. She was the culmination of centuries of survival, ingenuity, and determination. The Arvath leader pulsed one final time, a gesture that seemed almost ceremonial. "Your species will not be underestimated again." Its words, broken but sincere, resonated in the chamber. Kayla nodded, understanding that she had won more than a battle. She had won recognition, respect, and a lasting shift in perception. Humanity was no longer considered primitive. Humanity was unpredictable, adaptable, and unstoppable. Kayla stepped toward the exit, the knife at her side, still gleaming faintly. The Arvath did not pursue. They had learned a lesson they would not forget. She had survived, and in doing so, she had shown the galaxy that human ingenuity, courage, and instinct were forces to be reckoned with, even against civilizations far older and more technologically advanced. As she left the chamber, the knife felt heavier in her hand, not because of its weight, but because of its significance. It was a relic, a tool, a weapon, and now a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit. Kayla knew that the story of this battle would travel far. Humans would hear of it, Arvath would record it, and the galaxy would slowly learn the truth. Humans survive, humans endure, and humans, even armed with the simplest of tools, could triumph where logic, technology, and calculation failed. The chamber's doors sealed behind her, leaving the Arvath to reflect on what had transpired. Kayla walked steadily down the corridor, her mind clear, her body alert, her spirit unbroken. The knife at her side was more than a weapon. It was a testament to survival, to human history, to the enduring strength of a species that refused to be underestimated. And in that moment, Kayla understood something fundamental. The galaxy could possess technology, history, and intellect, but humans possess something far greater: instinct, courage, adaptability, and the unyielding will to survive. No civilization, no matter how advanced, could ever fully predict the human spirit. She stepped out into the open platform, looking at the stars stretching infinitely before her. The Arvath had learned their lesson, but humanity had learned something too. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, even against civilizations older than their history, humans could endure, adapt, and triumph. And Kayla, with a simple, ancient knife in her hand, had proven that to the universe. Her knife glimmered faintly in the starlight, a small but undeniable reminder: humans were not primitive, humans were unstoppable.